Hello there, everybody. Welcome. I have the pleasure of being joined by the most wonderful guest today. But before we introduce our wonderful guest, Catrin Roberts, I'm just going to do a little bit about how this interview came about. So on the 11th of March, it was International Women's Day. We spent a whole week in the magazine interviewing fabulous women with wonderful stories, and that was incredible to be part of, and we're going to keep that up today and carry on with that with our wonderful guest. Also on the 21st of March was National Poetry Day, and we had a whole week with poets and just incredible people who like to write, and my guest Catrin Roberts is one of those people. So hello, Catrin. Thank you for joining me on this Zoom recording, which is very exciting. Could you please give a little introduction to yourself, please, and what you kind of do?
Yeah, I'm Catrin. I'm from North Wales, and I'm currently studying architecture, and I like to do poetry in my spare time. So yeah.
I like the fact that you mentioned about like doing architecture and doing poetry. Yeah. I think you're actually the first architecture person we've had on, which is quite
really
exciting. So obviously you seem very sort of creative and quite artistic, sort of in your, would you say your day to day is quite yeah. So first of all though, Catrin, I would just like to ask you, when did you first discover poetry? How did that journey begin for you, please?
I was in primary school, and they used to have these competitions. It was an Eisteddfod, it was called, so if you Welsh, you know what I'm on about. And used to have, like,
actually, Catrin, for those who might not be Welsh, because luckily we do have viewers all over the globe, which is excellent. Can you just give a brief flavour of what an Eisteddfod actually is?
There's different kinds. There's like a if I'm really going to go into detail, there's a national Eisteddfod, which is, I'm sure, there's like a community one, and then there's one that's for all of Wales, and then there's another one for the kids. I'm sure there's three, but they all have different purposes. So it's a lot of like creative arts, like singing, acting, poetry, and arts and crafts and things like that. So you can get involved in that, and yeah, you can win medals. I don't know if you can win money or prizes or whatnot. I haven't really gone into the depth of the art and crafts one, but there's loads to it.
So, like we said, obviously, obviously you've mentioned the Eisteddfod and discovering poetry. So, yeah, do you actually have any experience with like so did you win like a competition at school to sort of?
Yeah. I used to do it. I'm trying to think of examples now. I'm pretty sure it was me and my mum. We did like a clay puppet because I was really into clay. And
I'm sensing, Catrin, that not just poetry, but you've got like quite like art and appreciation. You seem to be you know, I mean, obviously with the Eisteddfod and things like that, when you had sort of a piece, because I assume that you were obviously in school and school friends could also take part in this competition. Did your friends know it was you when you entered, or were you quite sort of like, no, I'm going to hide this?
Yeah, this was like a school Eisteddfod, so we all had to have well, it didn't have to, but you know, it was quite fun. We all had nicknames, and mine was Squirrel. I came second in that competition, but I actually didn't realize that I'd actually won like anything. Or, you know, I was too busy talking. So
I like the way that when you ask poets or creatives and you find out these stories, and every single time they go, no, nobody knew it was me, like nobody knew it was me, and I barely registered it myself until you know, Like your mum,
Yeah, it's probably the last to register it.
yeah, I mean, it obviously because you went with squirrel. Were you kind of like, was it just kind of like just a thing that you thought, yeah, I'll go with that? There's something about it that I kind of.
I had a fascination with things with the same colour hair as me at that point. A fox, a squirrel. I can't remember, but I really identified with like tigers and things like that, because I was just like, oh yeah, if I was an animal, I would totally be that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
you see, like I was gonna mention this, but like animals and nature, we'll talk about this a bit later on, because it'll come up a bit later for us. So we'll dive into that one a bit more. But I just wanted to know, because obviously you've mentioned sort of like arts and crafts and other things that you would sort of do with your mum. Was that like creatively, would you have described yourself as quite a creative person? Like when you were younger, were you quite often like creating artwork and writing and doing different things, really sort of exploring lots of different mediums, not just like the writing is kind of the thing at the forefront at the moment, isn't it? But you seem to have all these other creative interests and passions kind of in one.
Painting was one. I used to draw quite a bit, but I used to not like anything that I would draw. So I used to put half of it in the bin. But
are you quite, this is an interesting question. When you're creating something, are you quite critical of what, are you always wanting it to be better, basically? Are you kind of just editing it as you go along before you're finally happy with it yourself?
It's different with writing, because I don't know why. I feel like I have a different relationship when it comes to drawing than I do with writing, because I won't perfect. I will refine writing, but it won't be as exhausting as, say, when I'm drawing something, because you have to start from scratch.
Is it something that obviously, is it something that you've ever kind of thought of combining both of those things at some point to see if that would work as a relationship, or would you rather kind of keep them separate?
Yeah, I'd rather keep them separate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is another thing. Like I found out that obviously you drawing and painting and art, like every time I speak to you, there seems to be another thing that you've attempted or tried. It fascinates me, Catrin, and I'm sure it would fascinate the listeners. I just wanted to know, were the people around you, like your family and friends, were they supportive of your creative hobbies? Was like creative things sort of things that you would do with your friends on the weekend as just as fun, really, not even as actual projects, but just to do different things?
My mum used to paint quite a bit. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but she used to arrange this thing in primary school called like Club Calv, so like an art club basically. And I still keep in touch with a friend who used to come to art club, and she says that, you know, she really enjoyed it, and you know, it was quite special to her. I
think that's it. I think if like when you're joining, like I remember when we had like drama and we had like an art club, and our friends just used to go on a Saturday, and I, like you, didn't really think I was particularly, like, I just used to love just getting involved in lots of different things that I would never get to normally do, and it's just fun, you know. It's just something nice about being a part of an art group, isn't there? That it's just a really nice way to spend your time, because you're also exploring art, but you're doing it together. So I used to find, you know, even if you were kind of like, oh, I'm a little bit unsure, or maybe this person's better than this, it didn't really matter, because you were like, oh, what can I learn from them that they can't, you know, that maybe they don't know how to do. So I was going to say, out of all the poets I know, Catrin, you and me, we don't write under aliases, and I know that some people think that's a bit odd that we don't write under aliases. To you, obviously, when you were doing the Esteros, what did, obviously, because you had that alias of Squirrel, did you find that was more comfortable to release that work into the world at that age, to be like, okay, well, I've got a name and people don't know it's me yet, so, you know, if it doesn't go down the way I hope it does, or, you know, then I've got that protection, haven't I, really, in a way?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, because I felt protected in a way. I can understand why people write into aliases, because it's like, I don't know, it takes a lot to put yourself out there, and it's just hard, but
it is hard, but you choose. This is interesting because it's a difficult thing to do. To sort of like, this is my name, this is who I am, and if people want to come, can easily find me, you know what I mean, like if they, and come up to me and kind of be like, oh, okay, you're so and so, you're Catrin, these are your words. So what was because you don't write under an alias, so
yeah.
what kind of drives that forward? Is it the authenticity and the vulnerability that you want to share with people and be like, this is me, as scary as it is, this is me?
Yeah. The authenticity. You know what I mean? Being authentic.
It's one of those words to say, authenticity, where even
Yeah.
after 30 years, my tongue gets caught on it like it's toffee, and I'm like, is this how I pronounce this word? Because it sounds as if, like, once you made that decision, that it sounds as if now you're completely at peace. You know what I mean? Like, you're completely at peace with it. Like, I mean, if you did a book of poetry, you would be using, your own name. And I think that takes a certain amount of confidence and self-awareness as we are learning. Because I know in school that I was bullied for being, a bookworm and being a bit different and being a bit weird. How did you find school, Catrin?
Not great. I wasn't really a fan. I found it tough. It shaped me who I am today, but it was very painful at the time because I just felt really different. And
different. Yeah. I mean, I know that you kind of said that obviously school was quite an unpleasant experience for you. Mm-hmm. But you do say that, it helps shape you into who you are. Are you comfortable with sharing how that shaped you and sort of affected your, your personality and sort of things that you deal with in your poetry?
I feel like if I hadn't gone to that school, or say if I'd gone somewhere else, that it would have happened. I would become me eventually, but it would take a lot longer. In a way, it's like you'd go down the same. I don't know how to explain it.
No, I think this is the thing for the listeners, is that, I mean, quickly we'll go over like your school experience, because you went, I mean, primarily you're bilingual, aren't you, Catrin? Like when we talk about languages, it's Welsh and English for you, which is I find, fascinating, just learning Welsh myself, like getting to grips with my Welsh knowledge. So I just quickly wanted to ask you about, because obviously you write in both languages, like English and Welsh. So far you've performed in English so far. I think. I just wanted to know, what do you like about both languages? Is there anything, say, in one language that you think, oh, I can describe this better, or I can, or I prefer this because of this?
I find that the Welsh words are a bit more like, I don't know, they sound prettier. So it's like, it's just some words. I really just like the and the sound. It's different, that's all. It's just unique. It's not like it's not like English, obviously.
I think that's it. I think it's like when we
yeah.
talk about like Welsh as a language, and even like my language, my Welsh language is very basic from the school. I'm learning Welsh now, and I'm finding it so engaging and so fascinating. And I think it's the way you're taught the language as well. But if you don't use it in your day-to-day conversation, and when you're pronouncing things, like some things you're like, oh, I'm not certain about this, I think it sounds right. You know, I think this sounds correct, but a lot of your, I mean, I was saying like some of your pieces are quite, you do feel that connection to Wales and where you come from, and a sort of a pride and appreciation about the beauty of the world. Is that a deliberate thing, or is that just something like when I've been talking to you, you're a bit like, oh, I never noticed this comes through? Or
no, I haven't. No, I didn't. I think it's just who I am. I think it just shows like, well, just quite transparent. I don't know. I didn't notice it.
This is the thing, because you said like who you are, and I know we've basically talked about fear. You know, fear is a thing that obviously in our lives can hold us back sometimes from different experiences, or sharing our words like you do, Catrin, which is wonderful. I just wanted to kind of say, because obviously you have social anxiety, you know, that is something that you something that you live with and you experience. Can you just tell me, obviously if you feel comfortable, a little bit about your experience with this condition?
It's healthy to have like a certain degree of anxiety, because helps you, you know, get off like your backside and do stuff. But when it comes to social anxiety, it stops you from doing things like everyday tasks, things that other people take for granted. And I know I felt like there was something wrong with me, and it was like I thought like, oh, this is unreversible, this can't be fixed. But then when you meet somebody else who is like that, it kind of opens up your world a lot more. But I think if I had somebody who was similar to me, I think it would have helped a lot if I knew that there was more people out there. Not right now, but you know.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like knowing that there are other people out there that are experiencing the same thing, where something like social anxiety or depression, bipolar, any of those things, you do end up feeling quite alone. And I think that does sort of, your self-esteem does get affected for a long time, doesn't it, Catrin? Until you find your community of people. Because you said that you just it's feeling misunderstood and strange, and then
just like well, it's kind of one of those things that's like, I felt misunderstood and strange, but I just thought, well, this is the way it is, like this is, it's kind of like you do your bed every morning a certain way, and then somebody comes along, it's like, hey, it's actually this way you do your bed.
I think that's the thing, when you get older, and because of different things, and you do find it quite challenging to even begin to make friends, because you're not sure you're not sure how, and you felt so sort of strange and alien for so long, and then you meet other people and they go, actually, me too, I thought that was just me. And like, oh wow, you just don't realize how easy that actually is once the door sort of opens up, isn't it? I know since when I've had the pleasure of working with you and meeting with you, because I think we've known each other almost 2 years now, and I with your social anxiety, it really does affect your life, and you've really been making these big steps to kind of go and get stuck into the world, and it's great. I think a lot of people could learn a lot from you, actually, Catrin, and the way you've sort of learned how to make things manageable into your own steps. I just wanted to know, is that did your attitude towards poetry and words change as you grew older?
Yes. I think it was something I lost along the way. I wanted to do songwriting when I was younger. I had a lot of kind of setbacks, and you know how it is. You kind of come off the path, and then it's like, where am I going? And then you go back on track.
I think
no,
that's I think that's a fair point, actually, is that if anybody from this interview, like, if anybody wants to do something and they think, oh no, I've had so many setbacks, I'll never get there. I would say, like, what you'll learn especially when I talk to you as well, is that sometimes you just get there another way. You get there a different way to how you thought. You still get there, and when you get there, you go, oh yeah, in a weird way, this is all, it's all come together, and it's very strange, I think, how life actually works. I just wanted to ask, obviously, because you mentioned about the songwriting and obviously writing when you were a child, were you quite creative, and was there like any in particular form of medium, like were you really into writing poetry, or did you prefer like short stories when you were a kid? What kind of gelled with you the most writing wise?
Short stories more than anything. It was all sorts. It would just be like talking about how, like giving fruit names and putting faces on them.
I think that's it. Like, short stories is quite an interesting one, because obviously now with doing poetry and spoken word, and I think a lot of people they have a bit of an odd relationship with short stories, where they're kind of like, oh no, I'll read a novel or something, but I won't pick up a short story. And you're like, I don't know why, because they can be as equally as nice to dip into as a novel, as satisfying as well. It's you definitely need a kind of gift to do short stories. But I was the same. I used to make up songs all the time, and I remember my mum saying, "What's this off the radio?" I go, "Mum, I'm literally making it up now as I'm sat here." And she'd be like, "Really?" I'm like, yeah. So I think we all get drawn towards each other, don't we, when we get a bit older? We're like, "Oh yeah, you used to do that too." And I thought it was just me, and I thought I was just weird. But I'm gonna ask, obviously, because when did poetry become a thing for you then? When did you move from the short story? Was there anything in particular, like a certain event or something happened that made you shift gears, or?
We lost my auntie, so my mum's little sister, when I was 9. So the same age before or after the poetry competition, probably. But I used to write letters around the house. I used to just hide them, and just thinking that she'd come pick them up, just with her angel wings, just drop by,
So but, I'm just going to say, obviously, Catrin, when you lose somebody at such a young age, that is a way for you as a kid to kind of make sense, I guess, to kind of make sense.
Yeah, express yourself. You don't know what's going on. You think they're going to come back.
That's it. Like, I think this is it, because you said, believing that she'd come back, and obviously now you're older, you kind of realize that your mother, what your mum would do for you to sort of keep this belief up. But I would just ask you, would you consider yourself, obviously faith-wise, because there's a lot of faith in what you do. Would you consider yourself to have a particular faith, or?
Christianity.
Yeah.
I just, I know, like, faith and things, like, people have different beliefs, and the internet can be a bit like defensive sometimes with what you believe in.
I think faith and I think religion, or just believing in whatever that you feel strongly about, if you want to, especially with grief, and that we do want to, we want to believe that there is something else, like, no matter who we are, that there's something there, isn't it?
It's like a source of hope.
Yes. Yeah, I was just gonna say, because obviously I've said that one of the themes I've noticed is your appreciation for the world and strong emotional experiences that move you, Catrin. You seem like somebody who, when you write, you are clearly being moved by something, and you kind of have to sort of write it down in a way to kind of get it,
Yeah,
out
yeah.
of your system.
And
I just wanted to say, would you say that writing is a cathartic thing for you to do to sort of release these emotions that you find particularly effective?
yes, yeah. It's just, it's a way of, it's like releasing all the pain without hurting somebody, because I could, like, I'm quite an angry person. I don't know if you think that, but I tend to just, I feel like that I could lose my temper sometimes, and if I write it down, then it doesn't hurt anyone. It's just there. It's my own thoughts, and
Yeah,
yeah,
it's like a healthy way. It's like a therapeutic way, isn't it? When we
yeah,
say to people
yeah,
about writing, like I don't. For some people, it's very difficult for them to explain how they're feeling. And when you say to
hmm,
people, just open a page up and write it, and even if you rip it up or you don't keep it, or if you can go back to it and it just takes you back, doesn't it? It's kind of like a time
yeah,
machine in a way. Like
yeah,
you can say, oh, I remember what song I was listening to, or I can remember what this was or what that was, and like a tool to help people, really, isn't it? It's not just, we
yeah,
use it every day. That's the thing, we write every day. So if somebody could maybe like watch this interview and they go and they write something, that must be a great, like, for you, that would be like, it's a nice thing,
yeah,
isn't it, to be like,
yeah. It
oh
would
yeah,
be.
maybe they've picked up a pen, or maybe they've always wanted to do this and they haven't had time. So obviously, Catrin, we've talked a little bit about sort of fear and anxiety and grief. What advice would you give somebody who is experiencing these things and maybe feeling a lot of different emotions? I think you can feel all these different emotions, and you can get very sort of upset or angry or scared. What would you say to them, Catrin, about feelings, and and what advice would you kind of give them?
You're never alone. You know, everyone has their own demons, one way or another. We all just deal with them in different ways, like just inner shadows or outer shadows.
Realizing, I
Yeah,
think this is the thing, realizing that to deal with your light, you have to deal with your dark. I think
yeah, exactly.
that's a thing. It's all about the balance, isn't it? And the balance sometimes can be a journey that leads us everywhere, all the
Yeah,
places that we might not want to go. But try not to, I would say, maybe try not to dwell, and maybe try and think to yourself, okay, what can I get from this? Or can I create some art?
yeah,
Or can I, something like that is so therapeutic, isn't it, to somebody? Especially maybe if you don't necessarily maybe feel like talking about something, maybe create something, and see how that goes. I just wanted to know, because obviously we are in the middle of a very strange time where we're having a
yes,
lockdown after lockdown after lockdown,
never
which
ends.
I don't know about you, but I'm losing track of the day, and I'm sure our watchers are losing track of the days and the times, and your normal routine, because obviously a normal routine is very important for anybody, I'm sure, with your social anxiety, Catrin, that we talked about like lists and stuff, didn't we? Sort of like
Oh yeah, yeah.
organizational tools and stuff. I just wanted to say, how has poetry helped you during this strange, turbulent time that we're living in?
Um, I'm not sure. it's it's given me like a release of emotions. Like a lot of people have been feeling very, like everyone, all of us, have been feeling really impatient and really down and out. And I don't know. I just feel like it gives interesting it gives interesting poetry, I'll tell you that much, this pandemic.
I think this is the thing. I think obviously before the lockdown, you'd started to sort of share your poems on different platforms and do performing, and then obviously COVID, and we were hoping that you would do, more performances and build that way. So for you, it must be a little bit sort of like frustrating, because you started to do all these things, and now you seem to be finding other way around, like every like combining, like doing the words even in short little pieces, and still keeping up your writing quite regularly in your diaries and stuff like that. So would that be something, obviously, because everybody's different, but for you, writing on paper, that seems to be sort of where you kind of are really, really comfortable with, writing your words down physically and having it in a book?
I don't tend to write things on my phone as much. I don't know what it is about pen and paper. I don't know if I'm just very old-fashioned or what, but I really just love like notebooks, and just writing it down feels right.
I think when we talk about writing, I mean, so many people kind of like, oh, I have to write a certain way, and just because some of us prefer notepad and pens, and others prefer notes on our computer, and it's really strange, because like there isn't a set right way that you must do it. Like, as if it speaks to you, then go ahead, like pen and paper, like I wish I could show you Catrin's books, guys, maybe one day. She might let me put some scans in if I'm very lucky, but you've got these like really beautiful elaborate books that you bring out with you, and just seeing you work on them, there's just something magical about that. I love that. I love seeing pen on paper. It's beautiful. I just wanted to ask, Catrin, because you are quite new to spoken word, how did that journey begin, and how did you gain the confidence to move from the notebook, and share that with people? How did that come about?
I already felt exposed, and I already felt very vulnerable. I'm pretty sure it wasn't even a year into me losing my mum. I think it was about 8 months or something like that when I did my first one. So it just felt like it can't get any worse than this. So let me just chance it. I've got nothing to lose. I'm already.
Yeah, I think this is interesting. I think you have to. I think in a way, nobody can kind of put you there. It has to be a point that you get to where you go, well, actually, I'm going to try this, because I'd rather try it and be really, really scared than never try it. And then I think that's a point that you have to get to, because obviously another thing is obviously the community that you're part of. Were you surrounded by people where actually you kind of thought, yeah, I'm going to go for this, like there's certain kind of characters or personalities, and I'm just going to go for it, you know what I mean, and see what happens?
It's such a beautiful thing when somebody, it's such a nice compliment when you hear somebody say, oh, you inspire me. But it's, it all goes round. I feel like, because a lot of my friends and community have inspired me, but then that person inspires that person inspires the other person, and it creates this really beautiful ripple effect.
That's it. There's something so nice about being in a room of people where initially it might be an environment where you might not really know people, and you're feeling a bit out of it, and then you start talking to one person, and then you get to know the community that way, and then they like even seeing them, like they might be like, oh, I can't make a show, but I'll share it, and it just creates this lovely community that feeds into each other and supports each other to a way that is makes us do things that we never thought we'd be able to be able to do, and really push ourselves out of our limits, and kind of start to sort of achieve our dreams, really, stuff that we never thought that we'd ever be able to do. I just wanted to know, because obviously when you first began to share, you were sharing in a small group. Our friend had a sort of a community group, Peter Rogers. What made you take that leap about sharing your work? Because I know that first of all, you kind of would share things with me, and sort of we'd go through pieces together. And then the next thing, a couple of days later, you completely surprised me, and there was lots of really positive feedback about work that you'd shared, which was wonderful. And it was such a step for you that even I was quite surprised pleasantly by it, you know.
What was the question? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. So the question is obviously, so Pete kind of had this group that I think it was like, was it like themed pieces? I think it was like once a month. That was it. So so to explain to the listeners, our friend Pete Rogers ran a poetry thing called Voice Box, and we have a closed Facebook community for writers that maybe don't want to share their spoken word yet, but would like to share their written pieces. And Pete would do lovely themed things like "Who Am I" was one of the pieces that you did a wonderful poem on. You know, different themes basically, and I think you just ran with the themes, didn't you? Really, Catrin, something about that seemed to they seem to speak to you and go and, you know, create. So I just wanted to know how that sort of inspired you to post online, because obviously posting on a forum is still quite a scary thing with other people reading that you don't know, isn't it? It's very vulnerable, like, you know.
Again, it was like, what have I got to lose? I feel like I'm one of these people as well. Once I put my mind to something, like, I'm going to do this, I'm doing it. That's it. Like, I'm going to go get there.
I was just going to say, like, one of the things about you is I love that tenacity and strength that you have, where you go, actually, I'm going to give this a go, because that requires a level of confidence that you have to just get to a place, don't you, where you're like, actually, let's see what happens with this, and let's just give it a good try. So Catrin, obviously you've come such a long way since those early days, and you're growing, you know, all the time, and I'm sure everybody's excited to carry on to see your journey and the work that you share and what you do. Can you tell me please about some of your achievements so far?
I'd say the open mic night is quite an achievement, and just putting the poetry out there in general, like.
So I'm just actually for the people watching, the open mic night that you did, where was that, and was it hosted by anybody that you know at all?
It was hosted by my friend Isabella Crowther, and it was at T-Pow in Wrexham. So it was quite a friendly community. It was one of those where I was like, I'm gonna know a few friendly faces in the audience. Thankfully.
Would you say that obviously with Isabella Crowther you know, she's an amazing musician, singer. You know, she does everything. I mean, she's an absolute marvel. Do you think that her open mic night was probably the best kind of open mic for you to do it? I.e., you know, maybe if it was say if it was another like open mic night where you didn't know that person, do you think that you would have still done it, or do you definitely think, you know, because of knowing people in the crowd and things, that helped you?
I think I might have phrased that, but it wouldn't be the first time. Who knows, really? I mean, I might have not done it, but I feel like I can't really say, but the community really did help me. Like, it was really good support.
I think that's a big part of having the community was because I think before that you did the open mic, did you do a bit of practice with anyone, or did you kind of like sort of
in the mirror.
Well, I think we did a couple of sessions, didn't we, where we went and you read some pieces to me, and I think initially you were quite like, I don't want to do this, like it felt really strange, didn't it? And we practiced like that, didn't it, like to explain to people, and I think that kind of helped you build your confidence as well, because we knew each other. I mean, I wanted to ask, because obviously writing poetry, as much as, we both love our notepads and our pens, Catrin, but when you perform poetry out loud, what's that like? Does it feel different? Is there a certain thing about that you like, even if it's very scary, which it is?
I love the adrenaline, but I feel like I'm what they call it, adrenaline junkie. I feel like I'm one of them anyway. I just love things that give like a rush.
Would you say, obviously, Catrin, when we said about adrenaline when you're performing, would you say to people to just go with it? I know, like, fight or flight, isn't it? That reaction to kind of either really go for it, or or hide in a bathroom. Like when you were on the stage, because obviously, were you kind of like in your head kind of telling yourself, you know what, I can do this, it might be scary, but I'm here and I'm going through it, you know what I mean? Like a dialogue with yourself, isn't it?
Self-soothing, that helped. Like, I think that's a technique that I learned when I was about 15, 16.
And so I was just going to say, it's it's interesting because you said self-soothing, but you said like it's a technique that you've learned that's kind of help. There to help you, with different things. So if the anxiety does get a bit, noisy and loud, you can be like, well, actually, I can tell myself, in a way, different. Using would that be a technique, the self-soothing? Would that be something that you would recommend to people, Catrin, to have in there?
Yeah, that really helped me. I also use like chamomile tea. Well, it's in the name, it'll keep you calm.
That's it, isn't it? That's the thing, like saying to people, it's finding tools for yourself, isn't it? Tools that work for you, that make you feel, when you're not in a good place, to put you nice and level so that you can do the scary thing. This is it. So you can do the scary thing. I just wanted to obviously, one thing that you do is with the spoken word is you started to do, obviously pre-lockdown, was working on little context pieces for your pieces. So before you did a poem, do you think that little bit of dialogue helps with stage fright, and does it help you become more confident with your audience?
Sorry, do you mind putting it in a different way?
Yeah, no, not at all. So basically, like when we do little introduction pieces before we're doing a poem. So do you think that obviously taking that little bit of time to sort of have that piece kind of gets you more comfortable with the audience?
A little bit, but I'd say I get more nervous thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to say, rather than the actual content, because I'm trying to get it word for word perfect. But then what always happens is I'll get tongue-tied and trip over words, and I'm like, oh god, I've been learning this poem for 2 days straight, and then all of a sudden it's the introduction that gets me.
I was going to say, because clearly, Catrin, you're very passionate about being on stage. Like that's something you're very passionate about. I just wanted to know really where, obviously, the confidence that you've developed. Has there been anything in particular that you've used to sort of bolster this confidence? Are there any tools or resources that you've been like, oh, I find that particularly helpful, or that's helped cement me, make me become that person that I want to be, sort of thing?
This might be a funny answer, but meditation, like you can go on YouTube, or you can type in like meditation type. It's a hypnotherapy almost. But I find if I do that the day before, it'll give me quite a clear headspace.
Yeah, I think what you're doing, Catrin, is you're also taking care of your mental health and your mental well-being,
Yeah,
which I think is something as performers or creative people is very important for us to do, because it's not just about what we create and what we put out there, but it's also being comfortable in ourselves and what we do and what we share
yeah.
with the world, which is something. I mean, I'm hoping that perhaps one day that you will persist a bit further with that sort of aspect of it, because I think that would be beautiful, you know, to sort of see you
Yeah.
engage. I know you've already started to do some videos on YouTube that are more,
Oh, yeah, scary.
well,
Yeah.
scary. We will actually come back to that at the end, Catrin. But I just want to ask you, like, what advice would you give anybody wanting to write or perform poetry that might be a bit, you know, they might want to do it, but they might feel a bit afraid or a bit shy, or you know, they
Um,
might have a self-image that might say, oh no, don't do that, it won't be very good. What would you say to them?
be your own person, because it will, if you're just cloning somebody, it's going to show through, and you're just in the nicest way possible, you're setting yourself up for failure. So if you're more authentic to yourself, it's just, it'll just work better, because otherwise the inauthenticity, still can't say that word, it'll just show through.
That's it, isn't it? I think it's like we can often be inspired by people, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But we can, you know, when we are first experimenting with writing, it may be we just have to keep trying and find our own voice. Really, it might not even be in, you know, it might be just not even intentional. It might be, you know, we like somebody's work, and then but then we look
Yeah.
at it, and I think when even if you create a piece that's very personal to you, there's something very satisfying about it, especially self-esteem wise. If you've created something and you're like, yeah, that's a, you know, that's a piece of me, you know what I mean, and it may be vulnerable
Yeah.
or it may be scary, but it's mine, you know what I mean, it's my thing, my journey and my experience. I just want to say, Catrin, thank you so much for joining me. I admire your bravery so much, and I'm just so excited to see where your journey takes you. I just wanted to know, where can people find you and discover more about your work, please?
You can find me on my YouTube channel. It's just Catrin with a C, Catrin, and you can give me an email, which is catrinln@gmail.com.
What
So
kind of thing can we expect from your YouTube channel, Catrin? Is there anything in particular that you've been diving into, or have you been exploring lots of different things?
poetry mostly, but it's a bit of everything at the minute. It's a bit of vlogs, it's a bit of this, it's a bit of that. I just, it's a bit random, just like me, really. It's a little bit of everything.
That's just a lovely description to finish on. I'm Catrin, I'm a bit random. I love it. I love it. I just wanted to say, Catrin, as well, are you hoping to sort of, you know, continue with more open mic nights, possibly online, and sort of share your work that way as well?
Yes. So what day is it today? It's Sunday. It'll be Wednesday. I'll be performing. We each get 10 minutes, and it'll be with Viva Voce.
Oh, wonderful. I think this event is actually partnered with the Literary Festival, which my book co-presenter Paul, yes, I will actually be there behind the scenes as well. Wonderful, Catrin. I hope that's one of many more to come. Thank you so much again, and
You're welcome.
wonderful.